When people start trading, they focus on one thing: making money. They look for the best strategy, the best indicator, the perfect entry that will allow them to grow their account as quickly as possible. Everything is about profit and how fast it can be achieved. But after years in the market, I realized something that completely changed the way I see trading. Professional traders don't start by asking how much they can make. They start by asking a much simpler question: how do I protect my account? This is nothing new at all. But beginners don't know why do it, while experienced traders forget to do without realizing it. Let me start over with a simple example. Imagine two traders using the exact same strategy. One trader risks 5% of the account on every trade because he wants to grow quickly. The other risks only 1% because his goal is to stay in the game. At first, the first trader might see faster results. The account grows quickly and the wins feel exciting. But when a losing streak arrives, and in trading it always does, the account begins collapsing much faster. The second trader grows slower, but the account survives. And that difference changes everything. This is something I didn't understand when I first started trading. Like many beginners, I was obsessed with profits. It took years of mistakes to realize a much deeper truth. Before a trader can make money in the market, they must first learn how to survive in it. And in this video, I want to show you how professional traders actually protect their accounts, and why survival is the real foundation of long-term profitability. When I first entered the market, I didn't think about protecting my account at all. Like many beginners, I was focused almost entirely on profit. Every trade felt like an opportunity to grow the account quickly, and the idea of slow progress felt almost pointless. In my mind, the goal of trading was simple: find a good setup, enter the trade, and make money. But that mindset created a hidden problem that I didn't recognize at the time. When profit becomes the main focus, risk slowly becomes secondary. You start thinking about how much you can win instead of how much you can lose. Position sizes become slightly larger than they should be, stop losses become more flexible. And sometimes you take trades that don't fully fit your plan simply because the potential reward looks attractive. For a while, this approach can actually feel exciting. A few winning trades create the impression that the account is growing quickly, and that feeling reinforces the belief that you're doing something right. But the market has a way of exposing weaknesses over time. Eventually, a losing streak arrives, and when risk has been too high, the damage appears very quickly. This is the moment many traders experience their first major shock in the market. Several losses happen in a row, and suddenly a large portion of the account disappears. What once felt like progress turns into frustration, and the trader starts questioning everything: the strategy, the market, even their own ability. But the real issue usually is not the strategy itself. The real issue is that the account was never protected in the first place. Professional traders understand something that beginners often overlook. Losses are not rare events in trading. They are inevitable. Even the best strategies experience periods of drawdown. Because of that, the most important question is not how much a trader can make when things go well. The real question is how much they lose when things go wrong. And that is where the mindset of professional traders begins to look very different from everyone else. Instead of focusing on maximizing profits, they focus on controlling damage. Every decision they make starts from the same principle: the account must survive. The difficult part about trading mistakes is that they rarely feel like mistakes in the moment. When a trader moves a stop loss, holds a losing trade longer than planned, or increases position size after a loss, the decision often feels reasonable at the time. There is always a justification. The market might reverse soon. The trade still looks valid. Maybe the timing was just slightly early. But underneath those decisions lies a deeper psychological process. When a trader enters the market, they are not only placing capital at risk, they are also placing their beliefs at risk. Every trade represents an opinion about what the market should do next. And when the market begins to move in the opposite direction, it creates a subtle form of psychological tension. The human mind naturally tries to reduce that tension. Instead of accepting that the idea might be wrong, the brain begins searching for evidence that supports the original belief. The trader zooms into smaller time frames, finds minor signals that appear to confirm the trade, and slowly becomes more emotionally attached to the position. At that point, the trade is no longer just a probability, it becomes something the trader wants to prove correct. This is why certain mistakes appear so frequently across different traders. Stop losses get moved because accepting the loss feels like admitting defeat. Losing trades are held longer than planned because hope begins to replace discipline. Sometimes the trader even increases the position size, believing that a larger trade will help recover the situation more quickly. These behaviors are not signs of incompetence. They are natural psychological reactions when a person faces uncertainty, loss, and the possibility of being wrong. This is why many experienced traders emphasize humility in the market. As the legendary trader Jesse Livermore famously observed, the market itself is rarely wrong. It is the trader's opinion that must adapt. The market simply reflects the collective behavior of millions of participants. It moves according to forces far larger than any single trader's analysis. When a trader forgets this principle, the relationship with the market becomes a personal battle. The trader begins trying to prove the market wrong instead of managing risk. And once trading becomes a battle of ego rather than probability, the account is usually the first thing to suffer. Over time, these psychological patterns create a destructive cycle. A loss leads to frustration. Frustration leads to impulsive decisions. Impulsive decisions create larger losses. And those losses increase the emotional pressure even further. Many traders believe their biggest problem is strategy. In reality, the deeper problem is that the human mind struggles to operate calmly in an environment where uncertainty is constant and control is limited. Until that psychological dynamic is understood, even a good strategy can easily be destroyed by emotional decisions. The turning point for me came when I stopped trying to solve trading as a technical problem and started looking at it as a behavioral problem. For a long time, I believed the solution was hidden somewhere inside a better strategy. If I could just refine the entries, improve the analysis, or find a clearer structure in the market, consistency would eventually appear. But every time the system seemed to work, something else would eventually break it, usually not the strategy itself, but the way I reacted to the market. That realization forced me to change the question I was asking. Instead of asking, "How can I predict the market better?" I began asking a different question. How can I make sure my account survives even when I am wrong? Once that question becomes the center of your thinking, your entire approach to trading begins to change. The first adjustment is risk. Professional traders define their risk before they enter a trade, not during the trade. The position size is calculated so that even if the idea fails, the loss is small enough that it does not damage the account. This removes the emotional urgency that often appears when a trader feels that a single loss is too painful to accept. The second adjustment is accepting that being wrong is part of the process. In the beginning, I treated losses like evidence that something was broken in my system. But over time I learned that losses are simply part of probability. Even a strong edge can experience several losing trades in a row. Once you accept that reality, the emotional pressure around individual trades becomes much smaller. The third adjustment is separating identity from the trade itself. When a trader becomes emotionally attached to being right, every losing trade feels like a personal failure. But when the focus shifts to process rather than prediction, each trade becomes just one event in a long series of probabilities. This is where the idea of survival becomes practical rather than theoretical. If each trade risks only a small portion of the account, a losing streak becomes manageable. 5 losing trades no longer threaten the entire account. 10 losing trades are uncomfortable, but they do not end the trading career. The trader remains active, and the system continues to operate over a larger sample of trades. Over time, this creates something powerful. While many traders disappear from the market after a few large losses, the ones who focus on survival remain present. They accumulate experience. They refine their decision-making, and slowly the consistency that once seemed impossible begins to emerge. This is why professional traders treat capital protection as their first priority. Profit is not the starting point of success in trading. It is the result of staying in the game long enough for your edge to work. When I look back at the mistakes that caused the most damage to my account, they almost always came from the same underlying problem. I was thinking about profit before thinking about survival. Once I began to reverse that order, several principles became very clear. The first lesson is that risk must be defined before every trade. Professional traders do not enter the market hoping the trade will work. They enter knowing exactly how much they are willing to lose if it does not. This simple habit prevents a single decision from becoming catastrophic. When risk is controlled, even a series of losing trades becomes manageable. The second lesson is that small losses are not the enemy. In fact, they are the cost of participation in the market. Many traders try to avoid losses completely, which is why they move stop losses or hold losing trades longer than planned. But this behavior usually turns small losses into large ones. Professionals accept small losses quickly because they understand that protecting the account is more important than protecting their ego. The third lesson is that discipline is easier when risk is small. When a trader risks too much on a single trade, emotions become intense. Fear and hope begin to influence decisions, and the original trading plan slowly loses control. But when the risk is small enough that a loss feels acceptable, it becomes much easier to follow the plan calmly. The fourth lesson is that survival creates opportunity. Many traders disappear from the market after a few painful losses, not because they lacked intelligence, but because their account could not survive the learning process. Trading is a skill that develops over time. If the account is protected, the trader has the chance to gain experience and improve. Without survival, that process ends too early. The fifth lesson is that consistency comes from behavior, not prediction. A trader does not need to predict every move in the market. What matters is repeating the same disciplined process over a large number of trades. Over time, that consistency allows probability to work in the trader's favor. Once these ideas became clear to me, the way I approached trading began to change. The focus shifted away from chasing quick profits and toward building a process that could survive uncertainty. And that shift leads to one final idea that connects everything together. Conclusion: when most people think about trading success, they imagine profits, winning trades, and growing accounts. But the reality is much quieter and much less dramatic. Successful trading begins with survival. A trader who protects capital can remain in the market long enough to gain experience, refine their system, and allow probability to play out over time. A trader who ignores risk may experience exciting gains for a short period, but eventually the market exposes that weakness. Looking back now, I realize something that I didn't understand when I first started trading. The goal of trading is not to make money as quickly as possible. The real goal is to stay in the game long enough for your edge to work. And once that mindset becomes the foundation of your approach, many of the decisions that once felt confusing begin to make much more sense. In the next video, we're going to go even deeper into this idea by exploring one of the most common mistakes traders make when trying to grow their accounts, and why that mistake quietly destroys discipline and consistency over time.